Welcome everybody back to Flight Past, and this is part 12 of our series about Operation Tonga. And in the last episode we finished off talking about the capture of Horsa and Pegasus Bridge, and we did an overview of the 6th Airborne Division's area of responsibility. And today we're going to start to talk about I would say a slightly lesser known but probably even more incredible story, which was the assault of the Merville Battery on D-Day. And I wanted to start the story back in England, and we're going to show you here the plan that we've got. What I want to do is come down to Boscombe Down, which is here, and this we'll set as our departure point, and we're going to end up flying over the drop zone for the battery, for where they took on the battery. Now the battery is around here. This is where my cursor is right now, and the drop zone was to the northwest of Varaville, so it's this area here. So let's put the arrival here. Now, before we get there, let's come up here to the Broadmoor House and show that again, which is here, also known as Bridge Marston House. And I want to then talk about a place called Warbury Hill. Now, this is always a little bit tricky to find. There's Oldbourne, by the way. Now, Warbury Hill was somewhere down here. It was this place. So we'll head up here, and once we've done that, we'll fly up to near Abingdon, and what we're looking for is Harwell, and we were looking for RAF Harwell, which is this place here. So we'll fly up here. This is the place where they will take off on the 5th of June to do their mission. And I'm going to make an assumption here that they did something similar to Major Howard's lot, in that they came up or flew up possibly to Farnborough, somewhere, but they probably navigated their way down south But I believe they crossed again, possibly near Shoreham, just because of the ability of the airfields to guide the aircraft. So we'll put Shoreham in here as a waypoint, and that will then send us on a directly southern route down to the drop zone. Okay, so that seems fair. Let's get up in the air. When we get up into the air, I'll change the weather. Okay, so we'll head straight out. Let me just get the autopilot set up. We know from Howard's lot that they were probably crossing the channel maybe about 6,000 feet. I'm not sure if that's correct, but we'll put in 6,000 for now. We'll make see if we can get on the nav. Okay, let's get in the air then. Let's apply some throttle. Brakes off. This is probably going to go wrong, but we'll try. Always find this DC-3 a bit tricky. It's a transition point. There we go. Gear up. Now I'm just going to see if I can get this . Always a little bit sensitive, the autopilot on this thing. Just increase this. We need to turn now. Let's put it on heading mode. Okay. We need to turn turning back. Right, so just taking off from Boscombe down, and we're going to head to the north. What I'm going to try and do now is just get rid of that ATC. Just put it on a random. Anyone knows how to get rid of that, please tell me. What we've got, make sure we can pick up this. Oh no, this doesn't look good. That's better. A little bit dodge. Just turn this to the right a bit more. Yeah, just a little bit more. Okay, so we are flying here over this village. Here is the village of Durrington, and just to our going the wrong way. Come on, turn now. This is so we're flying Boscombe down. Ahead of us over here is Bulford Camp. Now, if you remember from the previous parts we did on Operation Tonga, this is where second battalion of the Ox and Bucks are based. And just to the north, when we get there, we can see Broadmoor House, which was the 6th Airborne Division's planning station, where all the reconnaissance photographs and resistance reports and intelligence came in, which the okay, we should be where all the intelligence we should capture this now, just making sure we do. Did he not again? Come on, dude. We're going the wrong way. No. Just turn around again. This is why I like to start these things in the actual air. We'll just come back round again and we should hopefully pick it up. Okay, so let's go and have a look here. Just remind everybody, so what we're talking about here is Broadmoor. People talk about Broadmoor, it's codenamed Broadmoor because, well, it's either because it was known as the Madhouse, or it was known as the the Madhouse because it was codenamed Broadmoor. It's not to be confused with Broadmoor itself, which is a psychiatric hospital in Berkshire. There was certain levels of secrecy involved, and if you had access to this house, you had the plans that were used in this building, which is this building here, had the top secret status bigot. And so if you had access to those that information, then you were deemed to be bigoted, which is kind of cool. If you want to hear a little bit more about that, you can. I spoke about it quite a lot on the Major John Howard's discussion. So what we're doing now is we're talking about D-Day. It's the 6th Airborne Division's role in the actual D-Day, and we've spoken about this many times, but it's basically they were to secure the eastern end of the invasion landing section. Their mission was to establish a bridgehead over the River Orne and the Caen Canal in order to disrupt German counterattacks from the east. They were a number of missions. They were to try to capture the 2 bridges at Benouville and Ranville, which we have discussed a lot about, which is the Pegasus Bridge and Horsa Bridge, and they were to destroy 5 bridges along the River Dives, which was to the east, and the third major part of the operation was to neutralize a battery of guns at Merville. So it's all designed to disrupt the counterattack from the Germans, force them to move around and through Caen and not come across the bridges onto these and attack the landing units at Sword. And it was the Merville Battery was neutralise this battery because it was believed it contained some guns 150mm caliber, which had a range of about 8 miles and therefore was capable of targeting the whole of Sword Beach. With many of these operations, there was some contingency plans. For example, it wasn't expected that D Company of the 2nd Battalion Ox and Bucks would capture the bridges intact. So they was taking a lot of dinghies and things like that to go. And with the Merville Battery, and they were bombing it from the air, but it needed to be, the job to neutralise the battery had to be done by a certain time, otherwise it will be targeted by a naval bombardment. So let's we've got to a place here just below us, which is called Warbury Hill. And it just loads in here. So this is Warbury Hill. So we're going to. This is part of the planning on the capture of the Merville Battery. So we spoke about Major John Howard, and now we're going to talk about Lt Col Terence Otway. He was a 29 years old man. He was given command of 9th Battalion of the 3rd Parachute Brigade. He had therefore 600 men under his charge, including a troop of sappers from the 501st Antrim Parachute Squadron of the Royal Engineers. Their task is to, as I say, neutralise the battery. They would be supported by 8 Horsa gliders, 5 of which would be bringing in jeeps, stores, anti-tank ammunition, explosives, and 3 of them would be carrying 50 volunteers who would land similar to the bridge attacks, with a coup de main landing the gliders actually on top of the Merville Battery. So Otway is giving Bigot clearance, and he is shown back at Broadmoor the plans of the battery. It's obviously surrounded with barbed wire and minefields, trenches. It's got 4 heavy concrete gun emplacements, and they're, as I say, they're believed to contain 150 millimeter caliber guns. They and so could cover the beaches and the port of Ouistreham. Each gun is in a steel emplacement with steel doors and covered in 12 feet of earth. The defenders from the resistance reports, I believe to be 180 to 200 men, and they are located in an underground control room, and various emplacements and pillboxes dotted around the site. The position of the battery is it's a circular position, 400 yards in diameter. It's surrounded by a double apron of barbed wire with a 100-yard deep minefield. And there's a village nearby that contains more troops. Lieutenant Colonel's Terence Otway's line commander is Brigadier Major Bill Collingwood, and so his instructions to Otway is to plan an assault on this battery, and one where they will be landing at 20 minutes past 12 on the 6th, and on a drop zone that's 2,400 yards away, and they needed to get the battery destroyed by 4:50 a.m. So let's we can talk about Otway's plan in detail as we go through. But I wanted to talk about this place in particular because this is in April 1944, and a bit like Howard, Otway is given a lot of resources to help him plan. He and Bill Collingwood looked for an area, and they noticed this this ridge here, and they wanted to plan an attack. So in April 1944, they spot this area and they believe it's ideal for them to do their preparations. Now, it's not clear which part of this ridge they used, but I did a reconnaissance on Twitch the other day, and for me, this area here is ideal, and the reason is because Otway himself mentions the fact that it is ideal for live ammunition training because there's no all the hills cover it. Now, so he mentions in his diary that him and Bill Collingwood flew over this area and they noticed this place called Walbury Hill. I did say that right. I haven't put this on properly, haven't I? Let me just check. I'm sorry, I've misspelt it. It's called Walbury. Walbury. And he mentions in his diary that it's a long ridge about 800 feet high, very narrow at the top. So he says it was ideal, which this looks like, this ridge here looks like. He says it was. They said it was ideal for live ammunition. He says he then visits the farmer, and the farmer was very willing to help, which he said was really useful because he didn't want to have to use a compulsory order on him. Another landowner in the area was actually owned by a retired lieutenant colonel, so the same rank as him, from the First World War. And he said he was a little bit more reluctant, but he managed to persuade him with a gin. The powers that he has is quite impressive because he's getting a lot of red tape from the civil service for this, but he wants basically to do a recreation of the Merville Battery in this area and then conduct exercises. He says he built a whole replica of the route, not just the battery but the route from the landing zone. They said they included every hedge, every ditch, every fence they would put in place in this area. Whether or not we can see any clues to that today is probably not going to be happening. But when you look at the area and you're looking at this, it seems to me that this dip here, it seems perfect for running an operation that's going to be secret. You could put the battery somewhere down here. You got a little round markings here. You can never tell, but maybe, possibly. It's you could then have down here. You could have a mock drop zone, but as you can see, like, you can conduct a whole sort of 2,400 yard march into this area here, putting features onto the map, onto the landscape to help. Whether or not this is the place, I don't know, but this is the general area of it. He was, and it makes sense because he was so concerned about secrecy. So having it in a sealed area like this makes sense, because you can have people up here making sure that no one can see what's going on, and it keeps it quite stops what people viewing it. And he was so concerned about the secrecy that he actually requested some WAFs. They're the Women Auxiliary from the RAF, and he told them that he wanted them to go to Newbury, which is I believe it's the nearest largest town. Which could be over here. So he sent these women. He got 12 of them, and he sent them into Newbury during when they were doing these exercises. So we're talking probably May time, April, May. And he said he didn't want to know what they got up to when they were in Newbury, but they wanted to find out, basically, if there was any rumours or anything going on about what was happening on the Warbury Hill. Now, presumably, local people today know a little bit more about the location of this place. I can see from there's a memorial near Coombe Gibbet, and it says, it basically reads, in the fields and woods below this hill in May 1944, the 9th Battalion, the Parachute Regiment, commanded by Lt Col Terence Otway, DSO, rehearsed plans for their successful assault on the German coastal artillery battery at Merville, France, before the seaborne troops landed in the invasion of Normandy on the 6th of June 1944. The replica of the Merville Battery was built in, I think it was about 7 days. So, yeah, they built it in 7 days, which is pretty impressive. And there was, believed, I think, 9 different rehearsals conducted over 5 days, with 4 of them by night. So that is Warbury Hill. So let's now continue on. Actually, let's call that the end of that part, and we'll take a little break, and then when we come back, we'll move on to RAF Harwell. So I'll take a quick break, and we'll be back in a second. So welcome back. Welcome. We're now doing part 13 of our talk on Operation Tonga. And we're heading now to a place, time was RAF Harwell. And the date is going to be, this is actually going to be the 6th of June, 1944. So RAF Harwell is coming up on the nose here, and this is in Oxfordshire. And you might not be able to recognize it today as an airfield, but this was where the Parachute 9th Battalion of the 3rd Parachute Brigade took off on their mission that evening. So this is Harwell. Now you can probably just about recognize some of these runways. Now if I showed you this is usually marked by car parks, but you can see here this is a runway, modern tarmac here, but look at these concrete blocks here laid down, and the runway goes all the way up to here. You can see the end of the runway there. So that's one of the runways. You have another runway which is this, you can just make out this where this straight road is now through here, which is now used as the main route in. And the other runway, because they always came in threes, was here again. Look at the car park. It's taken over by a little bit by that building, but you can see it basically pops out over here. So this is RAF Harwell. Fascinating place. One that you could do a whole subject on its own, but this was it's the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory. They did do a lot of work here on nuclear fusion. You can almost, this is almost I think a mini kind of CERN place. Lots of these RAF airfields were taken over with, you know, almost like industrial estates, really. Lots of space. You can see the outline still today of the main, as I said, of the main runways. You even have, I believe, these round stalky kind of roads was possibly where anti-aircraft batteries are set. There's another one there. Now, I presume they are from the Second World War. They might have been added on later because of the nature of this site. It might have needed Cold War protection as well. You can see here there's one there, but there's also this area around concrete here was probably a turning point for aircraft. And you can see also out in the fields here there is more sites, probably anti-aircraft positions around surrounding the position. This airfield was built in 1935, and there's a number of squadrons were based here. Um, 1944, the 38 group came here, which were the airborne forces, and this is where a lot of the TOWs, glider operations were launched from as well. I believe I may be wrong, but somewhere around here, there is a memorial to the men who flew from here, killed on operation. I say it's subsequently it's been used for several purposes, including atomic energy research, fusion power research, and it's now it's called a science and innovation campus. But as I say, that's a very that's an interesting site, and I find these ex-RAF airfields quite an interesting subject just on their own. So I think I might do something about them, try to identify where they were and see how they've changed. So, we're now on our way to our mission. Now, whilst we're just going to fly down here, I'll just run through what the plan of Otway was, and then we can compare what the plan was to what actually happened. The back there at RAF Harwell, the advanced parties, the initial waves of Pathfinders, they took off at 11:10. So let's start keeping a record of the times. So we're talking 23:10, and it's on the 5th is when they took off. The very first people who were the advanced party. Otway's plan was always, because the drop zone, it was his drop zone, I believe, Victor, which was, as I said, was to the north west of Varaville. Their drop zone was about 2,500 yards to the southeast, so his plan was always to attack the battery from the southeast side. And he knew from Broadmoor that out that side there was a double apron barbed wire fence with a 30-yard minefield, and with a barbed wire fence 12 to 15 feet thick and 6 feet high. There was another minefield extended 100 yards around the battery from that point, and that was then surrounded by a it was more like a wire cattle fence than anything, and it was possibly electrified. So these Pathfinders, they took off at 10 minutes past 11, and they were due to drop at 12:20. The initial drop was for these people who were split into what's known as a rendezvous party, the RV party, and then also the battery reconnaissance parties. So there was 12 members, 6 in each, and so one officer, 5 men. So one group would, the RV would establish the drop zone using Eureka beacons, whilst the battery reconnaissance party their 6 would split into 2, 1 officer and 2 men, and they were to advance on the battery to make a quick study of the defences. The other 3, they actually went to a different battery, which I haven't been able to identify as yet, but it was sort of rumoured that it was a fake battery, so they were just sent to go and check to see if it was actually fake. Surprisingly, at 12:30, so it's between the main drop and the reconnaissance and RV parties, the RAF conducted a bombing run on the battery, which was consisted of 100 planes plastering the target with 400-pound bombs, and this gets pretty close to some of these reconnaissance people. So that seems like an error in their planning. They maybe should have put the bombers in first and then dropped the reconnaissance people. It might have been just that there was different speeds were taken across the channel, and one got ahead of the other. It's hard to say. The plan then was that at 12:35, 5 horses would land as close to the rendezvous point as possible, and these will be bringing in 6-pounder guns, tank guns, jeeps, scaling ladders, and Bangalore torpedoes. Then at 12:50, once the battalion had assembled, they would follow these tapes that have been going to be laid down by the reconnaissance party, and who would guide the battalion to the most suitable breaching point on the inner defences. So they will go through the cow fence, and they will go through the outer minefield, and they'll get to the inner fence and mark out the best place to breach. And so that's at 12:50, and then 4:30. This is where they would begin their attack. They would have a diversionary party, would feint attack round to the north part of the battery. And basically, we're using pits and brens, make as much noise as possible, and that's to distract the Germans to look the other way as the breaching party, which would be Company B, would lay their Bangalore torpedoes and clear the wire. This time as well, it's expected that 3 Horsa gliders would land inside the batteries, which sounds absolutely crazy, and these would be containing 4 officers and 54 men of A Company, and an attachment of sappers. With the gliders coming in, a bugle call will be sounded, and this will signal the mortars to switch from explosive. They will switch to shells for illumination, and then the Bangalores would be blown. C Company would then charge in to rush the gun emplacements, and a troop of sappers would follow closely to destroy the guns. And so we're going to start this at 4:30. By 5:30, they would have an accompanying naval attaché with them, and he would be signalling HMS Arethusa. This is to tell them that if there's been a success, and if they hadn't received the signal, they would assume that the attack had failed, and they would open up on the battery with their 6-inch guns. So that's the plan, and we'll see how close it goes. When you read it, it sounds... I mean, it sounds doable, but there's a lot relying on the very first thing going right, which was making sure that the battalion lands in the right place, and so that's the sort of main issue, isn't it? So, okay, so we're heading here. We're coming up on Shoreham. So let's get this the conditions set up correctly. I put it at June the 30th because that's when the full moon was in this year. The time then, we're talking midnight. We're going to have broken clouds, and just going to move. We'll just do the one layer of clouds that we knew from John Howard's mission. So let's make this. We know that the base is probably about 2,000. And the top's probably maybe 6,000. We'll leave it like that for now. Okay, that should be okay for now. Inside, let's switch on cockpit lights. We'll take off the beacon lights. Definitely don't want the landing lights on. And the navigation lights. So okay, so we've gone dark. We're going across the from Shoreham, and we're heading south. So I'm not sure if it was the case. I was reading and listening to Private Dennis Edwards' recount, and he said that the D Company went across between Worthing and Shoreham, and it kind of makes sense because those bases could have beacons on them that these guys can hone in on. So we're in the morning now, coming up sort of 5th, 6th, heading south. We should be at about 6,000 feet, but we're going to descend going to be about 1,000 feet. Now, the jumping height of paratroopers, of course, on the actual evening, varies, but it's believed anywhere between 600 and 800 feet. So when we get out in, we'll presumably they used to wait until they could see the coast before they got down to jump height. So, what actually happened? And as I say, so the advance parties, they took off from 10 minutes past 11 from RAF Harwell, and the first. Oh, let me just show you some pictures of these guys whilst we're here. This is Terence Otway, Lieutenant Colonel, and the first battery reconnaissance party was commanded by this chap here, which is Major George Smith, and he's accompanied by Company Sergeant Major Bill Harold and Private George Dusty Miller. And Dusty Miller is on the first out of the door at 12:20, and they all land in the correct place. Otway had just a quick note on the takeoff. He recalls that the main drop took off at 11:30. They had 36 aircraft, and he walked down every aircraft and said good luck to all of his captains. He reminded them that the most important part was to get to the rendezvous point and to try to avoid as many fights as possible, get to the RV point. So the Pathfinders jumped out, all three landed. The first battery reconnaissance landed correctly, but immediately had to take cover in a ditch when the aerial bombardment went in at 12:30. And the bombers missed their target. Didn't do any damage much, and the actual bombs fell between the battery reconnaissance party and the battery itself. They moved past the now burning village of Gonville-sur-Merville, and they waited on the edge of the battery for the taping party to arrive. The rendezvous party was led by Major Alan Parry, and this is this guy. He was the younger brother of George Parry, who was the Padre, and if you remember from previous episodes, he was the Padre that tried to stop the Germans from bayoneting the wounded at an aid station in Benouville. He lands, this Major Alan Parry, he lands, doesn't recognise where he is. He manages to find a few Canadian paratroopers who's dropped by this time using his duck recognition whistle, and the call and response system was Punch and Judy in this area. At 1 a.m. he meets up with Lieutenant Joe Worth, Major Eddie Charlton, and Captain Hal Hudson, and they make way to this bushy tree which is on a bank and marks the RV area. And so this is when he can hear the main drop coming in, and he starts trying to signal to the planes. So 11:30, I say, so about 20 minutes after the RV, the main force starts to come in. So we are looking here, time-wise, we're looking at about I think about 12:30. And this looks like a good place to wind this section up, and then we'll talk next about the drop. So we'll see you in part 13. Hello everybody, welcome back. Welcome to part, I think it's actually 14 of our talk on Operation Tonga, and we're talking today about the Merville Battery, and we've got as far as we're crossing the channel in a C47 Dakota, and we're about to reach the drop zone to drop the 9th Battalion of the 3rd Parachute Brigade over drop zone Victor to the northwest of Varaville, in order that they can conduct their assault on the Merville Battery. So what I'm going to do now is I think we're at about 6,000 feet, and I'm just going to instigate a descent to about 700 feet. course, it's never as easy as it looks, is it? Vertical speed, there we go. There we go. So, as we said in the previous part, believe the jump altitude of the paratroopers is around about anywhere between 600 and 800 feet. It depended. We've discussed this in the past, but the pilots basically of these aircraft were not the cream, I would say. Didn't have a lot of combat experience, so there was a lot of panicking that happened, especially when they're experiencing flak a lot of the time, for the very first time. With the conditions of the evening, which is banks of cloud, broken, as you can see. This is these clouds here have top at 6,000 and a base at 2,000. If you're flying in V formations and you go through one of these cloud banks, the natural tendency, especially of a less experienced pilot, is to move away from your comrades around you. When they get to the actual coast, they're experiencing flak. Now, these aircraft, they don't have self-sealing tanks, so they are. If they get hit and catch fire, then they're going to crash. So the tendency for the pilots, when they're approaching these drop zones, is to lose cohesion in their formations, to be avoiding one another. They will be sometimes flying lower than they should be. They will be flying too fast, and everything that basically will lead to inaccurate drops. We'll see when we get to the coast, even with the lights that this simulation provides, it's very difficult to pinpoint the drop zones. And many of the drop zones, some of the beacons, the Eureka beacons, weren't working. The light signals aren't working, or don't work because there's so many flashes happening. And the drop zone that we're going to go to is one of the nearest to the coast, so it's not that far over the coastline that you need to be dropping people. So what happens? Well, it leads to a dispersed drop, and then all the issues following from that then get exasperated. Okay. So Otway, by the way, he actually says he sleeps most of the way across journey, because he's basically been at it 24 hours a day, almost for 2 months. And he actually finds that when Eisenhower delays D-Day, he actually finds that he's got, he's can only rest, and so he actually also, he says he falls asleep crossing there's whiskey, I think is passed around, a tot of whiskey. He reports that there was people said that they didn't report flak, but he says there was. One of the things he does mention is he felt that his 9th Battalion were prepared for this mission, but he was concerned because only him and one other had experienced action, and so most of his battalion were young, and in some ways that's a good thing, because if you don't know, you don't worry, but he was concerned that he didn't know how they would react under artillery fire and guns. He reports as he approaches that there was anti-aircraft fire. There was a loud explosion near the tail of his aircraft, which luckily didn't damage anything. And he remembers that there was another one very close to the point of jumping off. To his Batman, I think, in front of him got hit in the blast, and he was knocked out of the aircraft. He wasn't hurt, and this was Joe Wilson. His Corporal Joe Wilson was his Batman. So Wilson reports that he got knocked over by a blast of flak, and that knocked him over in the doorway, and he was the one standing in the door. And they had to help him up to throw him out the door when the green light comes on. He says that he tries to hand his bottle of whiskey to the RAF dispatcher as a sort of a thank you, but the same explosion that knocked over Joe Wilson threw the bottle out the door. So, it's amazing the sort of details these guys recall. We are approaching the coast. You can see the lights now in the distance. We're at about 700 feet. Probably going a little bit too fast at the moment. We want to be down to about 120 knots for a jump. We don't want to be much higher than that. Faster than that, sorry. So this is on the EFB, and this shows us where we're heading. Now we're going to be crossing a point which we mentioned before, between I think it's called Flonsville Plage and Coburg. There's a gap. You'll see it as a gap in the lights, but I think it was a gap also recognised by the RAF when they were trying to, when they're sending aircraft in with SOE agents and or bringing out people, they would identify these gaps, and one of them was in this area that I think we're going to be flying through now. So we can see the lights approaching, so we're going to get ready now to drop. And what we'll do our best estimation as to where John Otway jumped, and then we'll discuss the operation from there. As to the dispersion, you were talking, he's given a battalion, and he needs, I mean, this is 600 men in the battalion, and as we said before, they can expect anything up to 200 German defenders. So the more get dispersed, the bigger the risks. Okay, so we've got this gap we can see now in the lights as we approach the French coast. On the right hand side is I think it's let's make sure I get this right. It's yeah, it's known as Franceville Plage, which is the place on the lights on the right. This here is Franceville Plage. We've got Ouistreham Port here. This here is Sword Beach, and this here is Cabourg, and I believe here is the mouth of the estuary of the River Deeves. So we're heading into this gap here, and for the Merville Battery is sort of here, about a mile or so, mile or 2 mile inland. So let's get ready to jump. No, I'm not even sure it will allow us back here. No. It's a pity. So at this point, we should be, we're talking, let me see what the time was. It's about 11:30, I believe, when they get kicked out. Okay, so here we go. We're approaching the coast. We're at 700 feet. And remember, Hans von Luck remembers hearing aircraft at low level, so he knew that there was something going on. There was a a parachute drop or a resistance resupply. Okay, so what we're doing here is looking for our drop zone. And we're going across the you can see these areas of flooded land here, and this was flooded as well. By the Germans. I believe you were looking at the battery now on the right, and this area here is our drop zone. So let's, and there we go, we're off, we're down, falling to the ground. Boom. Now, that's not a bad drop, I believe. So let's bring up the light, and then we can talk about where we are. So we landed, I think we would have been safe. We're in a field. But as you can see from this angle here, the difficulty, the initial difficulty of being getting your bearings. This is, I've just changed it to daytime, but there is no distinguishable landmarks that you can see. I mean, the most distinctive things you can see, you can understand then why they might use a certain tree on a bank, because that is what you can see when you're looking around. But of course, you're probably aware of the direction of the other aircraft coming in, so that will give you a hint of where north is. You can probably get a hint of where anti-aircraft fire is going up. But you can definitely see how confused this would be. So let's actually see where we landed. Now I think this looks to be, we were probably a little bit early. I think these big patches here, this section here, it was the drop zone, I believe. In the middle of the screen there is Varaville, and our target is in that direction there. Now let me just have a look. So when, yeah, so this village here is Gonville, and this is the one that we were talking about when the Pathfinder said that they landed on the drop zone. So presumably they landed, this is the drop zone here, and they say they have to pass through the now burning village of Gonville-sur-Mer. So you can see, if you look, so they passed so the Pathfinders passed through this village, going towards the battery, and the battery is this a series of guns, buildings here. So you can see how if the RAF has bombed this village, you can see how far then they were off target. So presumably, you see these pictures of the battery, and so they're obviously dropping their bombs, and they're carrying on dropping their bombs, and they're hitting this village here. So they're actually very, very close to hitting the actual drop zone as well. So we landed in this area here, so that's not too bad. And presumably, if these guys went through Gonville and said they were on target, then you would probably assume that the RV, it might be these trees here. It could be this sort of, area here. The village might be recognizable. It's got a church. They talk about an RV. It's not actually clear where it is. They do talk about a tree on a bank. So we've made it, and we're looking now at the village of Gonville, and it's Merville. The reconnaissance party talk about sneaking past German sentries, and they could hear them talking. Time-wise, we're talking maybe about 1 o'clock by the time the drops occurred and some sort of organisation is happening. As we said, about that was actually a pretty good drop. I did a reconnaissance one yesterday on Twitch, and we ended up almost sort of 6 miles south. So it's very difficult to hit the target. But so there's high winds, of course, as well. This storm had just come through, so the winds were high. How much that disperses the parachuters when you jump in from that height, I don't really think it makes a massive difference. It's more of navigational errors from inexperienced pilots, or probably made more. One stick was actually dropped 30 miles to the east. So, but what it means is basically Otway's of his 600 men, he is now depleted. So I think this is a good place to stop for today. We've got ourselves onto the battlefield, and then in the next stream we'll look at just what Terence Otway is faced with, what resources he has, and how he uses his training to overcome the situation. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Once again, this will be split up into parts, so put out onto the YouTube. Please remember to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I hope you appreciate the amount of work that sometimes goes into these things. And we will see you, or I will see you next time as we carry on the assault on the Merville Battery.